In the dim glow of the lantern-lit courtyard, Sir Aldrich of Ravenmoor knelt before King Valen's dais, his blade resting carefully on the smooth stones. The kingdom had endured months of hardship, whispers of unrest, fears of shadows roaming the borderlands. To honor his unwavering service in aiding villagers threatened by wandering wolves, the king chose an unusual reward for Sir Aldrich, a chained vampire woman of noble descent. Her name was Aloan, exiled from her ancient lineage for choosing compassion over cruelty. Bound by iron fetters etched with old runes that glowed faintly under moonlight, she stood silent yet poised, her ebony hair falling in soft waves around a pale, serene visage. Though rumors spoke of her formidable gifts, no one dared speak aloud, for the court respected the unspoken promise that night might hold more than mere slumber. As Aldrich guided Aloan through winding corridors, torchlight danced upon her silent form. Courtiers bowed hastily, whispering in cautious tones. Could one truly bestow such a gift? Would the balance between days and nights shift because of it? Aloan's eyes, dark pools reflecting flickering flames, met Aldrich's steady gaze. In that moment, a silent accord passed between them. Both understood that fate had drawn them together beneath Ravenmoor Castle's vaulted arches. Despite the chains, there was dignity in her posture, a quiet strength that spoke of centuries lived and choices made. Beneath her calm exterior, she carried memories of moonlit gatherings and ancient pacts. Yet now she walked an unfamiliar path, guided by the hand of night whose own heart bore scars from trials of duty and resolve. Unseen by lord or commoner, atop ivy-clad battlements, a lone wolf watched. Its coat, a blend of silver and onyx, shimmered beneath the pale light of the crescent moon. Golden eyes traced Aloan's steps as Aldrich led her toward the tower that would serve as her chamber. The wolf's presence was a silent omen. Some believed forest creatures were bound by older laws, guardians of the delicate harmony between living and unliving. As Aloan's pale footfalls echoed down the stone hallway, the wolf shifted, muscles rippling beneath its fur, drawn to her inextricable bond. Within the castle's inner keep, Aloan was settled in a high-windowed room overlooking the forest's edge. Aldrich secured the fetters to an iron ring embedded in the wall. Yet, in his heart, he felt uncertainty awaken, for he glimpsed in her eyes more than gratitude or fear. He sensed defiance tempered by sorrow. The chains that bound her were not merely metal. They symbolized the chasm between night and day that she could never fully traverse. Still, Aldrich offered her a small basin of water, silvered with moonlight and a gentle bow, promising courtesy and respect until dawn's first light. As the distant howl of nighttime creatures drifted through the stone mullions, a hush settled over Ravenmoor. Aloan's form remained still, her mind tracing memories of grand halls bathed in starlight, of voices now silent by decree. In the hush of that moment, Aldrich's resolve grew. He would learn her story, unravel the mysteries held within her quiet grace, and perhaps discover a path beyond kings' decrees and ancient legacies. Beneath a sky embroidered with stars, the night, and under the cloak of midnight, a hush settled over Ravenmoor Castle. Lanterns flickered as guards paced the ramparts, their shadows merging with ancient stone. Inside the cold chamber where Aloan lay chained, moonlight trickled through a narrow window, illuminating the runes that bound her wrists. Silence reigned until a faint hum of power stirred within her veins. Centuries of suppressed ability surged forth. With a subtle motion, the iron fetters splintered into harmless fragments. Aloan rose, her movements fluid and silent. Gleaning no alarm from the sudden quiet among the guards, she slipped from the chamber, her footsteps feather-light on the worn marble floor. Through winding corridors she passed, avoiding torchlit halls where startled sentries whispered of an unseen presence. Each heartbeat throbbed like a drum beneath her skin, a reminder of both freedom reclaimed and dangers awakened. Outside the castle walls lay the forest of shadows. Aloan moved among gnarled roots, senses focused on every rustle. Beyond the pines, Brenner watched, Alpha of the Silverclaw pack, drawn by her released power. Once he hunted vampires without mercy, but now curiosity overcame ancient enmity. He padded until he reached a clearing where Aloan stood, her dark hair drifting in the breeze. "Why do you flee, vampire?" he questioned, his voice a low rumble that blended with the wind's sigh. "I refuse to remain a king's trophy," Aloan replied softly, not lowering her guard. Her dark eyes met his cautious gaze, revealing defiance and exhaustion. She had no wish to resume old hostilities, yet she could not allow herself to be enslaved. Brenner circled her, nostrils flaring as he detected her pulse, stronger and more ancient than any wolf's. "Your kind brings discord," he murmured, "and yet I sense no deceit within you this night." Unease lingered between them, born of histories etched in blood and sorrow. As the wind carried distant shouts, alarm bells from the castle, sending echoes through the trees, Brenner knew that time was fleeting. Aloan's presence would draw hunters, and she could not withstand their combined strength alone. A sudden pack of guards emerged at the clearing's edge, torches raised and voices urgent. Aldrich's face, lit by torchlight, showed shock at Aloan's freedom. Before they advanced, Brenner let out a challenge, a sound of sorrow and power. The guards wavered, their courage fading under his transformation. In a heartbeat, he shifted from wolf to towering figure, both man and beast, fur gleaming silver. Bows were raised, but Aloan stepped forward, her voice gentle yet firm. "Stand down. I seek no harm this night." Confusion reigned as Brenner's presence quieted their resolve. In that fragile lull, Brenner extended his hand to Aloan, inviting her trust. Without hesitation, she took it, and together they vanished deeper into the forest's embrace. The castle's echoes faded behind them, replaced by the hush of leaves and the promise of an uncertain dawn. As moonlight wove its silver threads through the canopy, Aloan and Brenner fled toward destinies neither could yet imagine. The forest of shadows breathed a chill mist beneath the waning moon as Aloan and Brenner pressed deeper along forgotten deer paths. Branches arched overhead like silent cathedral vaults, their leaves whispering secrets of countless winters. Though their flight from Ravenmoor had been swift, dawn's advance promised discovery by the king's men. Brenner slowed, nostrils testing the air for distant steel and smoke, while Aloan's keen hearing registered only heartbeat and wind. Yet between them rested an unspoken tension, centuries of feud converging upon one fragile alliance. Beyond a curtain of ivy, an ancient stone circle emerged, its moss-covered monoliths leaning as if tired of holding old memories. Here, the ground hummed with a subtle energy that pricked Brenner's senses. He halted at the circle's edge, amber eyes fixed upon Aloan. "We can flee all night," he said in a low cadence, "but until truth is faced, neither claw nor fang will know peace." Aloan turned, the soft glow of pre-dawn illuminating her features. "Speak your truth, Alpha," she replied, voice gentle but firm. Iron dust still smudged her pale wrists, a reminder of chains newly broken. Brenner stepped onto the weathered stones. "Our packs have told tales of Amoria's cruelty since the first snowfall of memory. Yet you claim mercy as your banner. I must know whether your heart aligns with your words." His posture was not threatening, but the gravity of his stance carried the weight of pack law. The vampire woman answered by loosening the ribbon that bound her sleeve. Beneath it, a faint scar traced her forearm, a mark earned while shielding villagers from her own kin. "Once, I turned against my clan so others might live," she said. "I paid the price with exile and chains. Judge me by that choice, not by the past of my house." Brenner's gaze lingered on the scar. Instinct tugged. Wolves honored scars as stories etched in flesh. Still, daylight inched nearer, and trust between predator and night walker was fragile glass. "Words and scars alike carry power," he murmured, "yet old wounds between our kinds do not fade easily." In response, Eloin knelt upon one of the standing stones and plucked a white thorn from a nearby bramble. She pressed its tip lightly to her palm, enough to summon a single drop of crimson. Extending her hand, she offered the drop to the earth, letting it sink into the moss at Brenner's paws. By sharing lifeblood with this land, I vow no harm shall come to your pack by my doing, she pledged. The gesture stirred something deep within the Alpha. Wolves valued oaths sworn to soil and sky. Such promises bound spirit more tightly than chains ever could. Brenner lifted his head and released a low, resonant howl that rolled through the circle, a call of acknowledgement rather than challenge. Silence returned, settled like dew on stone. Eloin rose, meeting Brenner's gaze without flinch or fear. In that quiet exchange, an accord formed, delicate yet resilient. As the rim of sunrise painted the distant horizon with pale rose, they understood their path was no longer simply flight. Their next steps would shape the fate of humans, wolves, and nightfolk alike. Side by side, they turned from the ancient stones and walked north, toward uncertainties vast as the sky now brightening above them. Dawn's pale hush settled upon the hidden trail as Eloin and Brenner continued northward. Dew clung to low ferns, glimmering under shafts of new light that pierced the forest canopy. Though the sky promised warmth, a gentle mist lingered, softening every outline like a whispered secret. Their journey paused at a clearing where ancient birches formed a natural archway, guiding them toward Moonfall Glade, an almost forgotten sanctuary woven into local legend. Here, moonlight was said to linger even beneath the sun, bound to a pool whose waters reflected both day and night. Brenner's wound, earned during their escape, throbbed but did not bleed anew. Eloin noticed his slight hesitation and knelt beside a patch of wild lavender. Humming a subtle melody, she crushed the fragrant leaves between her fingers. The herb's soothing scent mingled with the morning air as she pressed the salve against Brenner's shoulder. The Alpha's thanks came as a brief nod, yet his amber gaze held quiet admiration. Few beyond his pack had ever tended him with such gentle resolve. As they crossed into the glade, an otherworldly hush enveloped them. Sheer cliffs ringed a crystalline pond, its surface mirroring a ghostly half-moon even at midday. Eloin paused at the water's edge, sensing a dormant pulse beneath the moss-lined stones. Long ago, she said, her voice a soft lilt, our elders forged treaties upon this water. Blood and promise mingled here, keeping peace for a generation, until pride scattered the accord. Brenner knelt, cupping the cool liquid in his hand. The reflection of the pale moon shimmered, merging with his shadow. Then let us renew what time forgot, he replied. He drew a small obsidian shard from a pouch at his belt. No grand weapon, only a relic of his pack's rights. Eloin placed her palm over his, guiding the shard to trace a simple sigil upon the surface. No wound was cut. Instead, the rune formed from their mirrored reflections, joining light and dark in delicate balance. A silver ripple radiated across the pond, awakening luminous runes that glowed upon surrounding rocks. Far beyond the glade, unseen observers, both wolf sentries and silent night watchers, felt a subtle tremor in the earth's breath. In Ravensmoor's highest tower, Sir Aldrich viewed the distant sky as it flickered with a faint arc of light. Though he did not know its source, he sensed the moment carried meaning beyond royal decrees. Back in the glade, Eloin and Brenner watched as the rune faded into calm water. The act felt neither like conquest nor surrender, but a bridge between histories that had drifted apart. Brenner's shoulders eased, the pull of old grievances loosening from his heart. Eloin's expression softened, relief mingling with cautious hope. Before they could speak again, the rustle of nearby underbrush signaled a new presence. A lone raven perched on a low branch, feathers glossy and eyes bright. Tied to its leg was a slender scroll sealed with crimson wax, the mark of the wolf high council. Brenner unfastened the message, unrolling it with steady fingers. His brow furrowed as he read its contents. a summons to stand before the council on the next full moon and justify his alliance with a daughter of Amoria. The consequences of refusal remained unspoken but clear. Aloin's gaze met Brenner's, and together they recognized the path ahead. Their tentative covenant would soon be tested under watchful eyes of both clans. Yet, within the quiet strength they now shared, the seeds of trust had taken root. Hand in hand, they left Moonfall Glade, ready to face the council's judgment and the world it might reshape. Night crept in with a hush of frost as Aloin and Brenner approached the Wolf Council's sacred ridge. Ancient pines bowed beneath silver moonlight, their needles shimmering like silent witnesses. Though the air felt calm, a shiver of warning crawled along Brenner's spine. Unseen eyes watched their every step. He tightened his cloak, sensing that the upcoming trial might be the least of their worries. Hidden hands, he feared, had already started to turn the night against them. They halted at a narrow gorge where mist pooled thick as wool. The path ahead forked, one route leading over a fragile rope bridge, the other plunging into a gorge lit only by stray moonbeams. Brenner reached for the bridge's fraying rope, but Aloin caught his wrist. "Listen," she whispered. From the shadows came the faint clink of steel. Without further word, she tugged him toward the gorge, where tall stones cast broken silhouettes. Within moments, 4 wolves in human shape stepped onto the bridge, torches raised. Leading them was Garrick, Brenner's longtime friend, once sworn brother of the hunt. Garrick's eyes glowed with stern resolve. "Alpha," he called, voice echoing. "You carry a Nightborn companion in violation of the Council's decree. Surrender now and face judgment. Resist and be named traitor." His proclamation rolled over the ravine like thunder. Brenner stepped from the shadows. "Brother," he answered, trying to quell the tremor in his chest. "The Council has summoned me. I do not flee. Yet I will not abandon Aloin." Garrick's gaze hardened. Behind him, torches angled forward, chains clanked softly. Brenner realized they hadn't come as escorts, but as jailers sent in secret, hoping to capture him before the trial began. An ambush from his own kin. Yet why act in darkness if justice was on their side? Garrick lifted a binding band of silver, its surface etched with runes that could weaken any shapeshifter. "Orders of the Elders circle," he said, his voice heavy. "They fear the omen your union may awaken." At that revelation, Brenner's breath stilled. The Council's writ had been twisted by deeper powers. Aloin's eyes flashed with determined light. Stepping forward, she spoke calmly. "Then judge us in the open, not with shadows at our backs." Barely had her words faded when arrows hissed from bushes across the gorge, shafts tipped with wolfsbane glaze. Brenner shielded Aloin, feeling the sting of one arrow slice cloth but spare flesh. He shifted halfway to his beast form, growl rumbling through the gorge. Garrick's eyes widened, realizing a separate force. Human soldiers loyal to King Valen had joined the trap, hoping to seize both wolf and vampire. Chaos erupted. Torches fell, sparks scattering. Aloin drew on ancient lore, weaving a wall of dusk between them and attackers, a veil that bent light, confusing aim. Brenner darted through the gloom, disarming 2 soldiers without lethal harm, yet each heartbeat told him trust had been fractured. Amid the confusion, Garrick hesitated, his loyalty torn between duty and old friendship. When the last arrow fell silent, Brenner faced Garrick again, both breathless. "Walk with me to the Council," he pleaded. Garrick, shaken, lowered the silver band and nodded once. Together, they stepped in a mountain passage, Aloin close behind, aware that the Wolf Council's judgment would now unfold beneath layers of intrigue and betrayal far deeper than either had feared. Mist still clung to the mountain path when Brenner, Aloin, and Garrick reached the outer rim of the Wolf Council's ridge. Chiseled tiers of granite formed a natural amphitheater where elders met beneath open sky. A hush lingered. Even the breeze paused, as though the land itself waited to learn the fate of Claw and Fong bound by uncommon vow. Each elder, 7 in total, stood along a curving ledge. Their pelts, draped over shoulders, bore markings of generations past. In the center, a single torch burned with blue flame, signifying judgment unclouded by personal bias. Brenner bowed low, shoulder still aching from the ambush, while Aloan dipped her head with measured grace. Garrick remained at Brenner's side, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Elder Morwan, tallest among them, spoke first. Alpha Brenner, you arrive accused of forging alliance with night-born blood and inviting peril upon our kin. His voice carried the weight of ages yet trembled on that final word. Peril, hinting at fears unvoiced. Speak your truth, so we may weigh it. Brenner straightened, answering in measured tones. I stand with Aloan because she saved innocence I once swore to protect. Old tales say vampires court only darkness, yet I witnessed light in her actions. She risked exile for mercy. He glanced at Aloan. She met his look, calm despite watchful eyes upon her. Elder Ryan, whose gray braids swung like pendulums, turned to Aloan. And you, daughter of Amoria, why seek fellowship among those you once hunted? The question held no venom, only careful curiosity. Aloan stepped forward, iron dust still faint upon her wrists. I seek no dominion, only a place where compassion is not weakness. The blood pacts I once served fractured long ago. If I must spend immortality mending rifts rather than widening them, let it begin here. Her words fluttered in a silence, carried on night air. Just then, a faint tremor rippled beneath their feet. No quake of earth, but a shudder of unseen magic. Elder Morwen's gaze sharpened. A second charge weighs upon this gathering, he declared. Scrolls delivered before dawn claim King Valen readies forces to storm our borders, citing Brenner's corruption as cause to break the ancient accord. Murmurs rose among younger council guards. Brenner's jaw tightened. Garrick's eyes widened. Aloan sensed threads of intrigue tightening like a snare. The king's sword will not stop at your ridge, she warned, voice soft yet firm. He intends to seize me for power, then turn upon any clan that harbors dissent. Elder Ryan raised a weathered hand. We must decide swiftly whether to sever this union or stand together. Torches flickered, casting uncertain light upon furrowed brows. Tradition demanded lengthy deliberation, but urgency now pressed against custom's walls. Before debate resumed, a low howl echoed from the forest edge. Scouts emerged, panting with news. King Valen's vanguard had breached the southern pass, bearing silvered weapons and iron cages. Time collapsed into heartbeats. Elder Morwen swept his gaze around the circle. Then judgment breaks with dawn, he said. Either we raise shields beside vampire and alpha alike, or we splinter and fall alone. In that instant, centuries of distrust teetered on choice's razor. Brenner clasped Aloan's hand, not as captor or captive, but as equal. Around them, council members inhaled the sharp mountain air, tasting both fear and possibility. The blue torch guttered, its flame leaning toward them like a silent oath. Dawn's first pale glow crept over distant peaks, and the ridge waited for a verdict that would bind or sunder the realms of moon and blood forever. Dawn's first blush spread over snow-capped peaks as the Wolf Council gathered in a tightened half-circle, their pelts lit by rose-gold light. Silence stretched, thick as morning mist, until Elder Morwen set his staff upon stone, signifying choice made. We stand with Alpha Brenner, he declared, voice carrying beyond the ridge, and we grant sanctuary to Aloan of Amoria. Murmurs of both relief and unease rippled through assembled wolves, but the decision held firm. No ritual chants followed. Urgency pressed them against tradition's slow pace. Within moments, runners sped to distant dens, calling every able wolf to arms. Aloan watched the flurry of purpose, feeling centuries of distrust shift beneath her feet. Brenner squeezed her hand, a quiet pledge that he would lead not only with strength but also with the compassion that had drawn him to her. Garrick, still bearing the weight of earlier betrayal, stepped beside them. I offer my bow to defend this pact, he said, eyes downcast yet resolute. Forgiveness hung unspoken. Battle would decide whether loyalty mended or shattered. Below the ridge, Moonfall Glade shimmered like a secret heart of the realm. Here, elders gathered herbs and ash to weave protective sigils, their paws tracing shapes in soil. Eloin joined them, sharing ancient vampire runes that bent moonlight into living shields. Together they carved entwined symbols, claw, fang, and crescent, into smooth stones laid at every trail. Each mark pulsed faintly, promising defense against steel and fire. By noon, lookout cries echoed. King Valen's vanguard snaked along the southern pass, banners snapping and spears flashing. Though the royal host outnumbered the wolves 3-1, the terrain favored those born on mountain slopes. Brenner positioned archers upon narrow ledges, while Eloin guided novices through breathing spells that sharpened sight and steadied trembling limbs. Elder Ryan offered counsel, reminding younger warriors to strike only in defense. The pack sought peace, not conquest. As sun dipped behind clouds, first skirmish sparked at the gorge where rope bridges swayed above frothing rapids. Valen's front ranks advanced, shields interlocked. Yet when they stepped onto timber planks, runes etched by Eloin flared silver, turning wood slick as glass. Soldiers lost footing, retreating in disarray while arrows, blunt-tipped to maim, not kill, rained from hidden crevices. Wolves howled in triumph, a sound that rolled like thunder down the valley. Anger hardened the king's heart. He ordered siege machines dragged through forest clearings, careless of ancient trees. In response, Brenner unleashed scouts who toppled boulders, clogging narrow roads and delaying wagons. Twilight painted sky violet as both sides drew breath, gathering will for nightfall's reckoning. That eve, beneath stars bright as polished blades, Brenner and Eloin met at the reflecting pool of Moonfall Glade. Placing their palms on still water, they spoke a vow heard by earth and sky alike, to guard life without prejudice, and to heal wounds carved by fear. The surface glowed, casting silver threads that stretched across the ridge toward every runestone. Wolves felt warmth ripple through fur. Even distant sentries sensed hope rooted in ancient soil. War loomed with sunrise, yet for one quiet hour, claw and fang, dusk and dawn stood united. Their pact, forged under watchful constellations, would decide whether kingdoms learned to share the night, or lost themselves to the darkness they so feared. Dawn slipped over the ridge in quiet gold, bathing the valley where two forces waited, hearts thundering like distant drums. On one side, King Valen's soldiers lined the meadow in rows of steel, banners drooping in the still morning air. Opposite them stood Brenner's wolves in human form and true form alike, flanked by archers from high ledges, their eyes steady behind moonlit runes. Between both fronts, a slender ribbon of mist curled above dew-coated grass, marking a fragile no-one's land. Sir Aldrich rode ahead of the royal lines, helm tucked under his arm. Memories of Eloin's calm dignity haunted his thoughts, twisting loyalty into unease. He raised a white cloth high, its edges fluttering with hesitant hope. Brenner stepped forward, Eloin at his side, her dark hair veiled in morning light. Wolves on the ridges lowered bows. Soldiers eased spears into the earth. Silence fell like snow. "Your Majesty," Brenner called across the soft distance, voice resonant yet gentle. "We seek no conquest, only the right to live beside you, without chains or hunger for harm." Eloin's gaze rested on King Valen, not with anger, but with a quiet plea that reached beyond words. The monarch studied her, recalling the night he deemed her a token. In her eyes he now saw a resolve tempered by mercy, a reflection of virtues he once prized in his own youth. Before he could answer, a faint tremor pulsed beneath the sod, and rune stones hidden along the meadow edge flared silver. Soft waves of light rose, weaving through grass until they touched each warrior's boots. Warmth traveled up armored shins, across furred legs, into beating hearts. An enchantment of shared memory planted the night before at moonfall glade. Soldiers felt echoes of childhood comforts. Hearth fires, lullabies, first hunts beneath birch canopies. Wolves tasted village feasts, laughter from humans who once feared them. Light revealed what steel could not, that each side yearned for home, not victory. King Valen dismounted, leaving sword sheathed. He stepped into the open, hands bare. "I was told fearsome tales of fangs and claws," he said, voice carrying across the hush. "Yet see only guardians defending their own." His gaze drifted toward Sir Aldrich. "Knight, do you stand by this judgment?" Aldrich nodded. "My life was saved more than once by compassion I failed to show in return." He turned slightly toward Brenner and Eloan. "Let our next deeds be worthier of legend." A murmur swept the meadow. Armor creaked as soldiers knelt, wolves bowed heads, tails low in peace. The tension broke like ice under spring sun. Valen crossed the final steps, offering his open palm. Brenner met him halfway. Claws retracted, he clasped the king's hand. Eloan guided their joined hands to rest upon the earth, sealing a covenant older than kingdoms. In that simple gesture, chains shattered in memory, replaced by new accord. Days later, under a sky brushed with violet dusk, the stone's circle where birches whispered bore witness to rare celebration. Elders of the council, human lords, and wandering night folk gathered as Brenner and Eloan exchanged woven rings of silver bark and moonstone. Neither crown nor title weighed upon them, only vow and shared breath. Torches glowed, illuminating faces once strangers, now kin. Music rose, low flutes, wolf howls in harmony, gentle bells, carrying across hills where rune stones dimmed at last, their purpose fulfilled. When the first star appeared, King Valen spoke aloud the pact, binding 3 realms, day, night, and twilight between. If any voice doubted, none was raised. Peace settled on Raven Moor and the forests beyond, carried on wings of ravens, in letters to distant courts, and in stories children would hear by firelight. And when moonlight filtered through window or pine, folk remembered the morn when swords rested, and love, unfettered, rewrote fate for claw and fawn alike.